Sorry. Do not apologize. Jeez.
Well, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you, too.
Okay, so first of all, congratulations on the Waterfront.
Thank you.
As a fellow ECU alum, you know, this feels at home, a little return to form for you as well. So I'm looking at the poster. It says, you know, from the creator of Dawson's Creek and Scream. Where on the scale of from Dawson's Creek to Scream does the Waterfront fall?
Well, in Dawson's Creek, it's in the same. Well, we shot in the exact same place. We shot Dawson's Creek, so it's probably leans more into the Dawson's Creek, if they all grew up to become sort of. If they all turned to a family life of crime. If Dawson's Creek grew up and had a dysfunctional life and turned to a life of crime, I guess would be the answer. It's different. It's somewhere in between.
Yeah,
somewhere in the middle.
It's somewhere in the middle. It's super fun. I will say that it's so funny because right off the bat I was like, oh, bodies.
Oh, well, you mean like dead bodies?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few dead.
Well, I guess I mean in all forms. Netflix also has Outer Banks, which is in a similar coastal Carolina era. You're a little further south, I believe. But how would you say, I think people will naturally maybe try to make comparisons to Outer Banks. Are they any spiritually similar at all, relatives in any way?
I think they're in the same grocery aisle, for sure. And I think if you like Outer Banks, I think you'll find something in the Waterfront to like. I do think, it's a little more of a family drama specifically and a crime drama, whereas I felt like Outer Banks, from the 3 seasons I've seen so far, it seems like it's more young love, and they're sort of caught up in it's sort of almost like a pirate show where they're trying to find a sunken treasure, which I loved. But this is more about just a generational family and their legacy, and how they sort of have turned to a life of crime. It's sort of, when really good people do really bad things.
What was your North Star for the show? Where was the nexus of this idea?
It came from my dad. I grew up in North Carolina, as you know, and in a very, very small town, very much like Southport, where we filmed this show. And there was a time my dad was a fisherman. And there was a time in the 80s when he did some drug trafficking.
Okay.
And he, was trying to support his family during a really bad time, the fishing season. The fisherman career had just tanked, and he started smuggling some drugs.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. So it's based on sort of I was inspired by my dad, like the greatest man who ever lived.
Yeah.
And he was trying to put me through college. He was trying to support his family, and he made a decision, and he ultimately was caught, and he paid the price, and he went to prison. What? Very much like Jodie Potter's dad did.
I have no
Dawson's
idea
Creek.
about this lore.
Well, it's like if you watch Dawson's Creek, I think Jodie Potter's dad was in prison for conspiracy to traffic marijuana in excess of 20,000 pounds. That was my dad's charge. Exactly.
Wow.
Yep.
So your dad's like a Harlan type.
Yes, it's well cast.
Yeah, well, I mean, your projects always have incredible ensembles. Whether it's people that you look at now and you're like, wow, they're all megastars, or you see this cast come together and you're like, oh, hell yes, all these people working together. So talk to me a little bit about the ensemble and what your idea was going in and this casting.
Well, I wanted I did sort of have my dad in the back of my mind when I was sort of casting the lead figure, because I wanted someone to come in. I wanted him very strong. I wanted him very, hard and rugged and like my dad was. But the thing that my dad had that I loved so much about him was he had a great sense of humor. He just knew how to take any situation and turn it on its side and just, throw a crack, and just knew how to just make something funny. And I kind of think that's what Harlan does. He's sort of, he can't help his sense of humor. It sort of sneaks in every situation where he just comments on everything that's happening in such a way that, he's, my dad was the king of the one-liners, and I thought, and Holt is such a terrific actor. I worked with him once 20 million years ago in a TV show I did. He was in the pilot of Wasteland.
Oh, wow.
And he's a great actor. And I loved Mindhunter, and I've just loved everything he's done, and he can do anything. He's super talented, and he kind of embodies that sort of patriarch.
Yeah. And then it's funny because you have someone like Harlan who can be outwardly scary, and then you have Topher Grace that comes in, and he's kind of silly, but he's a different type of terrifying to me. And he really knocked my socks off in this show.
Isn't he great?
He's so great.
To be fair, I did write that character with him in mind.
Oh, great.
And I wanted someone who was so darn likable, and someone that we knew to be so darn cute and funny, and winning in all those ways in which you don't usually see a psychotic psychopath, a horrible person. And I just really. I like when really, really, really nice, funny people do really evil things.
Yeah. It's.
He really plays the duality very well.
It's so.
He's fun.
Great. So, okay, little backstory here is we went to the same college, East Carolina, and you
Yes.
hosted an alumni event, and it was last year at your house, and it was lovely. And I was like, I'm not going to corner this man and talk to him about Scream, but I love Scream, whatever.
Right.
But eventually, you have like the Scream mask in your house, and we're like talking about it, and I'm like, it's a shame it doesn't seem like Scream 7's ever going to happen. It was like in between all of these things, and you were like, yeah, it sucks. I think you were already probably knew you were going to do it at this point, but...
I don't think so. When was that?
When was this? I think it was probably about a year ago, right?
And that would be, what are we in?
I have no
June?
concept of time, though, so it could have been...
No. I think it had just fallen apart. Scream 7, Part A, Part 1, or the first Scream 7, I think, had just fallen apart.
Yeah.
And I don't think I think the plan I had heard, because I was never in the circle. I've always been sort of the godfather of it, and sort of the parental voice who they come to for notes and thoughts and stuff. They've been very kind to me, but I was never in the center of it, of the reboot. And I knew they were trying to get Nev to come back, and they came to me and said, how well do you know Nev? And I went, whoa. I know her so well that I'm not going to have this conversation.
Right.
And so, but it, what do you want from her? And they were like, I go, oh, that's exactly what I want. I wanted Nev Campbell to return as Sidney Prescott so bad. This is the story I really want to see. And that's what they wanted to do. So they went to her, and it all happened. It all sort of fell into place. And I think it was happening. It started. If it had started, It
got announced shortly after, to the point where I was like, he must have at least been talking.
Maybe
about it
we were
at
in the
this
middle.
point.
Maybe we were talking about it, but nothing had. Because I wasn't. I certainly wasn't directing it at that point when we had.
Because that's like it's great. I'm so excited, but Melissa and Jenna have walked away. Nev wasn't in the last one. I think it's a tough spot to come in and want to do. So what made you? Obviously, you had written you'd written some of these movies. You're the Godfather. You'd produced them, but getting in the director's chair, what made you?
Nev did. You're right. It was sort of, well, what's going to happen? After we lost Melissa and Jenna, and it just looked like we weren't going to see the Carpenter sisters in a third movie. It was kind of a bummer, it's like, what do we do next? And then this idea to bring Sidney Prescott back, and not just bring her back, but to focus on her character and tell her story of who she is today, that got really exciting for me, and I think other people got really excited by it. And then they started writing a script. Jamie came up with this great story, Jamie Vanderbilt and Guy Busick, and they started to write this script. And it just sort of took on a life of its own. And then Nev read it and heard the pitch, and she signed on. And I was still just the executive producer who was just sort of there watching from the sidelines. And then Nev called me one day and said, I think you should direct this. And I went, no. Okay, I'll do it.
Right. Are you in production? Where are you at right now?
I'm editing.
Okay. Wow.
Which I'm going to go to as soon as we finish this today.
In between a lot of things. I'd read when you originally wrote the first Scream that it came with ideas for sequels, right? Are any of those maybe coming to fruition in the new?
What I did was when I gave my script, when I Scary Movie to my agent to read that weekend, I got so nervous, and I was just, he's going to hate it. It's going to be awful. I was to keep myself in check. I just started writing the opening scene of Scream 2, the theater scene, and then I started writing what Sidney was doing in college, and I sort of created a 3 or 4 page outline for Scream 2, and then I added a page at the end where here's where Scream 3 would be. And I talked about the killers and their motives and how they all three connected. And that's what I had in the document. And then when they called and said, oh, we think we can take this out on the market, I gave them the outline, and they were, there's more here. There's a franchise here. And so what happened was they sent the script out, and if anyone was interested in it and wanted to make an offer, they sent the outline.
Oh my gosh.
And so it did kind of sell to, it did sell with that outline attached.
There's also a legacy sequel in the works for I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yes.
How are you involved at all,
No,
or
not
how
at all.
what is it like for you seeing that?
Well, I'm thrilled they're making it. I mean, it's exciting, because the fisherman is something that wasn't in the books, and that's something I created. That once again, my father rears his ugly head, his gorgeous head.
We're thankful for him. He's given us a lot
of. Oh my God, no. But my dad took me out on the boat and showed me how the fishermen's operated the boat. I said, well, Dad, I need his hand to be severed. How do I do that? And he was like, well, here's the winch, and here's the. I mean, he was just showing me around and how to kill people.
How to dismember a body.
Well, then you put him down in the ice hole down below, and I mean, he just sort of helped me construct that entire sequence on the fishing boat. And it was. My dad has been very, very instrumental, as well as my mom. But I had some great parents that were very supportive.
The landscape has changed so much where it's like, the way you would immerse yourself in TV, do all the promotions, it would run and maybe it would get canceled,
right.
Or, you have TV and streaming and just for you, what is the biggest change for you in the way that the landscape has changed? That was a really wordy way to ask a very simple question.
It's in the business itself.
Yeah.
I've watched it go from A to Z. I feel like when I first started television, it's just so Dawson's Creek was my first show, and it's just that type of show, and how you made that show, and for the WB at the time, which was just this brand new network, it was just a completely different experience. And now we're in sort of the tech age where we have these, a worldwide platform called Netflix, which pretty much dominates our what people watch on television, and it's streaming. Everything has changed. It's kind of fascinating. I love technology, and I keep waiting. What's the next thing? What's going to happen next?
Yeah.
So.
What is your overall plan or thoughts for the Waterfront? I think, honestly, I think it's going to be a huge hit. Personally, I was very hooked, binged the entire thing and without getting up. So I'm curious what you're thinking next. It does end on a what's next.
It is a what's next. I really hope people watch it and respond to it, because then we get a second season.
Yeah.
And I've just sort of figured out who these actors are in these roles, and I would love a chance to write for them and lean into them, and really sort of, I think the show can just go up. I think there's a whole second season that I have planned out, and a third season, quite frankly. So I'm hoping I get the chance to tell those stories, because I do think it's a fun show, and it's unlike anything I've ever done, and I just hope people enjoy it.
A couple quick, mild spoiler questions.
Sure.
Do you know how many people die in this season?
I have not counted.
I'm
There's a few.
I was thinking,
it's a crime drama.
No, it's great. It's great. But it's so funny because it was at one point I'm like, they're dragging another body. I was like, someone's got to catch on.
I don't know. Someone would have to account.
And then my other question is, what is Peyton up to? She, at the end, was I was got a little scared of her at the end.
Yeah, I think, there's a moment in the show where she goes off on her husband, Kane, and says, you're just like your dad. I know you don't want to be, but you may have your training wheels on, but you're just like your dad. Mm-hmm. And she goes, but I'm not your mother, and I never will be. And she makes that comment, and of course, that's exactly who she's becoming.
So, when she's at the end is like, oh yeah, we're fine. I'm like, what's she doing?
Yeah. She's just going to get the life she wants. At all costs. She's a survivor.
Well, I appreciate you.
Yep.
Go Pirates. Great to see you.
Yes, go Pirates. Isn't that awesome?
$10 million worth of cocaine and opiates. You realize we've crossed a line. There's no coming back from this.